When they all got in, some of them, of course, had Teslas. I went down, got in my car, and as I drove home, I said, you are not truthful, first of all, with yourself. How can you articulate the virtues of following God's first commandments of taking care of the earth? And you're sitting here. The next day, I went and bought a 300 hybrid car. And I've been driving. You've ridden in it.
Yeah.
When I pull up to a stop sign, it goes right to the battery. And so that's, and
You
I
feel
think that's
better about that, or you feel better about yourself?
Is there a difference?
Ah.
Because you can't feel better about yourself unless you're doing something that's the betterment of others.
So you've always been so articulate, and you've been a prime time premier preacher in the pulpit in a black church. But now you're dancing with some highbrow folks. I mean, this is a new circle of friends or influencers you
It
have.
is.
Am I correct? Has that changed you?
I think everything changes you. If you don't change, you'll break. For me to sit and I can look beyond blue and red and Republican and Democrat, because I know one thing: all people want to survive and have a decent kind of life. It's a matter of how do we find the ameliorating forces to bring it together. So when I begin to talk about coming together with, like I'll be at our day, the American Renewal Institute is out in Aspen, Colorado, which was founded by Jimmy Carter and Ted Turner and all of them. And it's interesting for me because in most cases, now what's strange, I'm the only black face in the group, but most of the discussions are around poor people and people in urban areas. So I'm raising the question, why are you all comfortable talking about us rather than with us? So when you talk about the big major conservation group, Sierra Club, Wildlife, American Federation of this, I chair Interfaith Power and Light now in 40 states, 28,000 houses of interfaith, Muslims, Christians, and Jews around America. And standing there to say, unless we make this a moral debate, it will just simply be a discussion. Some months ago, I was in New Mexico with 100 philanthropic organizations, and they were talking about funding. And I didn't say anything for 3 days, and then at the end they said, would you make a comment about what you've seen? And this is what I said to them. I said, I have heard from some of the smartest people in the world. I understand the scientific data. I understand the political will. I understand those of you who are environmentalists. But let me say this about all of you who are in this room. You're the dullest people I've ever met. You can't make it in 2019 being dull. The energy movement, the energy crisis, it's a dull conversation. And for young people, for millennials, it's got to have some excitement about it. We're in competition with Atlanta housewives. So what I bring to it is not motivation. I'm not a motivational speaker. You can't motivate anybody to do anything. Cheerleaders can't motivate you to cheer, touchdowns will. But what I like to do is be an inspirer, to inspire you to connect the dots between your health, your education, your voting patterns in terms of your lifestyle. And right now it's being sublimated because of the climate and the environment in which we live.
Dr. Durley, is that how you change? And you've been a major figure throughout the South and among the black community. But now you're that guy. You're that black guy talking about this, being invited around the world, not just in Denver, but around the world, right?
Yep.
How did that happen? How did you come to be that person they recognize and salute now?
Access and availability. I tell the young emerging pastors now, don't get up there and talk about yourself. Let Christ be your model, but then when your people come to you, be accessible and available. So being accessible, for a long time here in the city of Atlanta, I was one of the few pastors who was still doing baccalaureates at high schools and then run back to preach on Sunday. But you do that because we have to be in our community, the church which black people attend. Now this is, let me, you talk about wording. I very seldom use the term, the black church. No.
Am I wrong in that? Am I wrong?
I don't use the term black church, and I'm gonna tell you why. The church is colorless. The church is about our soul, but the church is called the Koinonia, the congregate of people that come together who love the Lord, who follows the Christian faith. So the church that black people attend, I say the church where black people attend, not the black church, but it's so easy. I never use the term, can I pick you up to go to church? You can't go to church, you go to worship. Church is you. But some people go to church and then they leave church, but the church is within us. Yeah, so the black church is, it's a misnomer. So I attend the church where black people are the predominant people, but not a black church.
I gotta say something. You have impacted many of us around this town, around everybody you touch. You touch people with your spirit, your style, your articulation. There's a gentleman here tonight named Corey Ruth, a Republican businessman and political star in his own right, who said, "I came here to hear you talk about this issue."
But let me say about Corey Ruth. It's a young man that I tremendously respect. In fact, when he was running for office, we met down at Pascal's. I was one of his first supporters. See, we got to go beyond the color and the difference. We got sidetracked. You see, America is the kind of country that once they label you, they can box you. That was a young man some years ago who went to Morehouse, and they boxed him into a civil rights leader rather than a father, rather than a husband, rather than a man of conscience. And once they box you, they can control you. So we get caught into boxing somebody. She's a that, he's a this, they're a lesbian, they're a boy, they're a girl, and then we can control. Why not allow the freedom that goes through? So Cory Booker was beyond those kinds of parameters. So I saw him as an articulate, young, gifted person who was a businessman who understood the legal ramification. And so that's why I was there.
Really, man, Corey Ruth. Corey
Ruth. I'm sorry, Corey Ruth.
He's a Cory Booker type, though, on the other side of the aisle.
But see, once we get into the others,
yeah.
But the Bible talks about the others. The others there about, when I do a thing about 19 others, love ye one another's, the others, all about others, and that's what we're supposed to be about.
You're also doing now, sir, a Dare to Care TV show.
Yes.
You're stealing our camera thunder now. You become
no.
This is on AIB. Is that correct?
It'll be on AIB. In fact, the first show was with a guy in this city. A lot of people have never heard the name Dr. Marshall Shepard. Marshall Shepard was the first black man who was over all of the new weather forecasters, the weather station in America. Brilliant young man, and he's a full professor at University of Georgia, right here in Georgia. Lives here. Van Jones, when we were with Van Jones, he consults with Van. He does all of he was on the Weather Channel. He was a caster. So whether he and about 4 or 5 other people are talking about the very things that we're talking about. It's not just about climate change, but it's about a lifestyle. And right now, we are suffering from that. The next one will be on gentrification here in the city of Atlanta. Then Cynthia Hale and F. Keith Slaughter will be on the next show talking about, and we've got to talk about sex trafficking here in the city of Atlanta because it is the #1 sex trafficking. It makes more than the Hawks and the Falcons combined. Why are we the #1 airport? Because we can come out there to there, they can have sex with these young girls and leave the city. So we've got to understand that, but we don't talk about it even in our pulpits. It is something that many of the white churches talk about, and we've got to get involved with that. So we've got to go beyond and begin to bridge the gap.
Speaking of pulpits, there's also a documentary being done about your former church,
right?
Where you're pastor emeritus at Providence Baptist.
It's the 150th year, and a lot of people don't know when I got that, a person who all his life was at Providence was a man named Benjamin Mays. That was here. So we're going to have a special day on August the 18th on Benjamin Mays and have high school students come over to see that this man was not just a mentor to Dr. King, but was one that could concretize bodies of information to make you think. All I'm doing in this last phase of my life, this rewiring phase, is to simply say, rethink. I see myself really. If someone says, how would you define this faith? I would see myself as a mirror. That's all. I don't have and when you look into a mirror, if you've got a smudge on your face, you look into the mirror and you've got 3 options when you look into the mirror. You can look in and say, I've got a smudge on my face. I don't like it. I'm going to remove it. Or you can look into the mirror and say, I've got a smudge on my face. I think I'll just leave it alone. Or I can deny that there is a smudge on my face. Either way, the mirror I'm not telling anybody what to do. I'm simply saying these are the realities around us, and if we're to survive, we've got to mitigate and climate change in our lives.
Can Hurricane Michael's wrath on the Florida Panhandle be revisited and retreated? Will they recover down there? That hits the heart of a lot of poor black folks, the Florida Panhandle. Can that happen?
Has Puerto Rico been recovered?
No.
So the politics get involved.
Yeah.
Business gets involved. So when business and the political wherewithal is there, we've got the technology out of Stanford right now to go through a lot of this that's going on. Here's another thing. When I was growing up, maybe where you grew up, we used to love fish fries and come around and fish fry. But right now our oceans, because of the plastic that is in the ocean that's really destroying, where oxygen comes from what they call plankton. Plankton grows on coral reefs. The coral reefs now are turning white. The plankton is dying, so less oxygen is going into the atmosphere under a greenhouse effect where carbon dioxide is destroying us. So therefore, it's all interconnected. And the plastic that's being put into, you're going to see many things coming out now. Plastic straws, plastic this, because it's destroying the ocean life.
Finally, you have a new company launched.
It's going to be starting called Urban Greenhouse Institute. And we're going to be talking about just the kinds of things and I'm going to make a special emphasis. I was with Otis Moss III out in Trinity, and getting young, gifted pastors where they can begin to connect the dots for our community and understand that it is a pneuma, psychic, and a soma, the body, the mind, and the spirit. And also, we finished a 10-city tour on the Climate Action Network, and I was traveling with several rappers. And it's interesting because we went to 10 historically black colleges, and the goal was to get our students beginning to think about wind energy, beginning to think about solar, beginning to think about alternative energies. More jobs are being created now in that era, and we're still not into that. So we spent 10 days. Now, I was embarrassed at Howard. I was embarrassed, and I had to come back because the guy that introduced me, one of the rappers finished, he said, now we're going to bring on OG. OG is coming on. So I said, OG. So I walked up to the stand. I said, it's so good to be OG. Very seldom can you find an old gentleman still in existence today. And so they started laughing all over the place. And I'm saying, oh, I'm an old gentleman. I thought it was a compliment. One of the rappers said, no, OG don't mean old gentleman. I said, what? It means old gangster. So, and I was sweating. They were laughing at me. But here's how I recovered. I said, you all thought I didn't know it meant old gangster. Man, all up in the balcony at Howard, they were laughing. I said, let me tell you, I am an old gangster. I'm a gangster for justice. I'm a gangster for righteousness. I'm a gangster against the climate. Everybody ought to be a gangster for something. And they all started applauding. I said,
you are probably the quintessential advocate and articulator of what has now become a nation's #1 issue. Are you the Martin Luther King Jr. of this issue, sir?
No. There are those. I'm the Moses. I'm not the Moses, but maybe like John the Baptist. I'm not worried that to latch the sandals of those that are coming behind me. I'm just out on the front, and I understand that. I understand it because I'm taking the initial kind of thrust to do it because I have to cross
and
both parties. And the brunt, yeah. And some of my friends, they kind of laugh. Like right now, but see, again, this ties even in the thing that's going on in Ebenezer, not the mass incarceration. When I went to Ferguson and I saw the conditions in Ferguson, but it was so hot that people were angry and turning on each other. See, so we've got to connect the dots to understand that we have a role. Here's the key. We have a role to play in our earthly salvation. We have a role to play in our earthly salvation. Now, and I say this. Here's the way I'm feeling about this right now. When I went to school and you went to school and you studied the seasons, you had fall, winter, spring, and summer. Those were the seasons. Is that how many seasons you learned?
Yes.
How many seasons are there? Just tell me, how many seasons? You went to school? 4 seasons. I believe that there are 5 seasons.
Okay.
I believe there are 5 seasons because someone said, I was reading, be ye not weary in doing well, for you shall reap in when? Due season. So due season. We're living in due season. Due season is that it's under God's will. And when you're in due season, it had nothing to do with whether it's winter, spring, summer, or fall. I'm in due season right now. And it says, you shall reap and you shall succeed if you faint not in due season. Didn't say in fall, because in the fall you're going to give up. In the winter, but in due season, if you faint not, you shall reach your goal. So in this due season era, this is where we are as black people. We're in our due season now. We've suffered, but we've been faithful. And so now, once we clear it up, connect the dots, understand that it's all coming together. In due season, we shall reap because we don't faint.
Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, the Reverend Dr. Gerald Durham, my man.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here with us. Only thing you're missing is him and his hat.
Give it to me. Let me put it on.
You got to see this. One last. This is the quintessential Reverend Gerald Durham.
Now here's what I say. This is a 2.5 inch and a 4-inch crown. Now, why this hat is important, in the old days, and for 8 years I opened up Morehouse College at the Crown Forum, and I tell the young people, Do you all you young men out there, do you want to get a lady? Do you want to get a sweetheart? Do you want, it doesn't have to be a Spelman. Treat women right. And they say, well, what's one of the best ways to treat women right? I say, do this, and you'll always, and I put the hat on the stage, and I do this. Good evening, ma'am. And touch the tip of your head, and it's, ah! But just, it's showing respect. I get on the airlines, I go to them, thank you for my seat. They say, let me upgrade you. It's the respect. So it's the tip of the hat. And that was the gentleman. At one time, all of our grandparents said, well, I got a hat rack when I come in the house for winter and it's just the tip of the hat.
Tennessee State taught you that?
Big blue.
Reverend Gerald Durley, thank you so much. Coming up, Joe Carn, a candidate for Fulton County Commission.
that library that they have there, I believe, just now, was instructed as well.
All right, it's time for newsmakers. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Newsmakers. We had an amazing interview with Dr. Gurley, as you saw earlier. But we intend to continue to provide you with insight into the leaders and to the individuals who are in the vanguard of change in our community and in the world. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, 8-time Emmy Award-winning journalist, Mr. Maynard E.
Hello again, and welcome back to another session, another interview on Newsmakers Live. This is our 11th season. We always love talking politics here. Let me begin by saying the late, great Emma Darnell was a Fulton County Commissioner for District 6 in Fulton County on the Fulton County Commission for 27 years. A stellar career. She passed recently. Now there are a number of candidates bevying up trying to fill that seat. With me today is a gentleman, many say maybe the leading candidate for that. Others argue differently, of course. But meet Joe Karn. For 9 years, a city council member on the College Park Commission, and for 3 years, a vice mayor in College Park. Joe, welcome to Newsmakers. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Maynard. It's a pleasure.
Tell me about this seat. How do you step in the shoes of somebody as infamous and famous and dynamic as Emma Darnell? That's a big shoes to fill, aren't they not?
Well, I'll tell you, Miss Darnell, Commissioner Darnell's shoes are almost impossible to fill. I feel like anyone that's going to step up to the plate needs to be experienced and needs to have a certain amount of respect for the institutional knowledge and history that she represents for District 6 and for all of Metro Atlanta. It's going to be a tough job and tough shoes to fill, but I'm going to do my best and stand on the shoulders of her influence and her legacy to do the best job that I can for District 6.
Her last race, as I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, was against the gentleman who's now the mayor of South Fulton, the new city of South Fulton, who was a former Fulton County Commissioner, right?
That's correct. That's correct. Bill Edwards.
Bill
Mayor
Edwards, that's correct. Now, that was a heck of a race.
It was. It was really something.
Was she unbeatable? Was she that strong or that politically savvy? Yes, he worked under Maynard Jackson back in the day, but she has her own political fiefdom, did she not?
She was a political powerhouse, and in terms of South Metro, she was the absolute, unquestionable matriarch of South Metro County. Her politics were generational. 27 years, that's well over a generation of politics. Before my daughters were even born, she was in office, and my girls are 24.
Wow.
Sir.
What do you do? What do you say to voters about I can do what Emma did or did not do? What do you say? What are you saying to voters?
Well, I would say to voters in District 6, what we're looking for here is essentially to find the best qualified and most experienced person for their tax-paying dollar at the end of the day. In other words, what you're looking for in District 6, you're looking for assets in District 6. And in 20 years of my public service, I've been a valuable asset in District 6. We need assets down there. We're not looking for any more liabilities. We have enough liabilities in District 6. We have environmental liabilities. We have socioeconomic liabilities. And we don't need a political liability down in District 6. You need a political asset. And that means someone that's ready to hit the job on day one, to hit the ground running. This isn't a position for on-the-job training. And you need someone that knows the players and the inning and the score on the ground currently in the political present state of South Fulton and District 6.
Well, that's a nice charge, if you will, but like, for example, we invited one of your competitors, former Fulton Commissioner Gordon Joyner, to join you. He declined, but you have others, right, who may or may not have served. It's a big field challenging for this seat, am I right?
Absolutely, and with the exception of Mr. Joyner, the rest of the candidates are unexperienced in terms of holding office. And like I said, this is a position that on-the-job training is not going to really work for the county commission. You don't have a lot of institutional knowledge up on the county commission there in itself with the absence of Commissioner Darnell in the absence of Commissioner Tom Lowe, who recently passed as well.
That's true. That's true.
I've
Tom Lowe
worked-
served for a
yes.
long time, really did.
Absolutely. This district has 9 cities within it. It is by far the largest county commission district out of all of the county commissioner districts, over 200 square miles. So this is a pretty major area, and according to the ARC, most of the development is heading to South Metro for the next couple of decades, I'm told. So with there being over 60,000 acres of developable land in South Fulton,
Wow.
the future for that region is very important, and how you bring in economic growth. Community-based economic development is what we're looking for in South Fulton. And you can ask all of our residents that I talk to and my seniors as well as millennials in the South County area and in the 6th district, they're looking for what you call a non-disruptive lifestyle. In other words, you want some growth, but it's got to be limited, and it's got to be the type that's not going to upset your traffic. People come down there for peace and quiet. They're looking for low taxes and low crime, and we want to try to keep it as close to that as possible.
You were a former College Park commissioner for, like I mentioned earlier, for 9 years on the council and 3 years as vice mayor. How would you, as a new Fulton County commissioner, help the county, the College Park Commission? What roles do each of you play?
Well, we would serve as a more or less a partner, a community partner in terms of intergovernmental affairs. We worked with Commissioner Darnell with city, county, intergovernmental contracts. We always had dealings with our commissioner because she represented our city on the county-wide level.
She had more clout, more influence, could say yay or no to much you might want to do in the city?
Well, I would say it's more of a partnership. The cities have their own sovereign governments and can vote up and down their zoning and local taxes and the like. But you can't do the larger things on a regional level without partnerships from your county commissioners. I've worked with all 9 mayors within our cities as vice mayor. If you remember, a couple of years ago, we passed the T-SPLOST, which was a $700 million improvement in terms of sidewalks and roads and bridges.
A major political victory.
That's right. And I was part of that political victory because before it came to a referendum to the citizens, the 15 mayors of Fulton County had to vote on that referendum whether or not it went on the ballot. Now, my mayor, Mayor Longino, he was out of town that time period. So as vice mayor, I had to go in with the other 14 mayors of this county, and I made one of the deciding votes to make sure we secured that $700 million for infrastructure, for sidewalks, for decorative lighting and poles, and the ADA ramps that you see in the sidewalks, as well as the extended crosswalks. I made that vote for all of District 6.
Joe, given that experience you had and the influence you still garner in College Park, why not run for mayor of College Park?
Well, College Park is 10 square miles, and it's a wonderful city. I tell you, a lot of people, College Park, our reputation has had a complete 180 turnaround. When I got into town 20 years ago, that city was a speck at the end of the runway. Let's just be real. And everyone has seen the development.
Sidewalk to the airport. Right?
That's right. You've seen the development over the last many, many years here, and we've worked hard. I've generated over $1.2 billion of new development in my district inside of College Park alone. So we've really turned that city around, and we're making progress in parts of District 6, and we want to keep the progress going for District 6 as a whole.
There are those who wonder, given the fact there's so many cities inside Fulton County now, does the Fulton County Commission really have any clout, any job, any duties that are relevant to those who live there?
Well, I think absolutely. With most of the county being cityfied, with the exception of the 7.5-mile stretch of Fulton Industrial Boulevard, which is a very important industrial corridor, the county has taken on fewer responsibilities.
Right.
But
has its profile diminished? Has its clout diminished?
I don't think its clout is diminished. Fulton County government is kind of seen as the Goldilocks of government. And the reason why I say that is, in the state of Georgia, we're seen nationally as a bit too far to the right. a bit too harsh. These abortion rules and these oppressive laws and voter restrictions and so on and so forth, they turn off a lot of potential businesses wanting to come to Georgia. Now in Atlanta, Metro Atlanta, you have another set of issues. A lot of them alleged issues that give us a certain stigma. Most of it unfounded, to be frank. But in Fulton County, you've got the middle of the road there, where things are moderate enough and where you make sure there's inclusion and there's acceptance of new ideas and there's acceptance of all people. We have all kinds in Fulton County, all races, all creeds, all preferences, and we accept it, and the government rolls on without exception, and we do a very good job of working together. Fulton County is a textbook example of what a community should look like. And I've been a part of making that a textbook example, and I want to take my public service to another level.
The Goldilocks government. That's a good phrase, man.
Absolutely.
Will that sell?
Well, I certainly hope it will. I have gone from a community activist, working with folks like Reverend Love and Reverend Gerald Durley. These were my spiritual fathers and teachers that pointed me in the right direction. And I went from community activist to city council member to vice mayor. And I think that I'm ready now, and I've earned the ability to handle these things, and I've managed the $100 million plus budgets and balanced them 12 years in a row. I have a stellar record of handling things in terms of public policy, and it's good to know what business you're in. I'm in the public policy business and serving.
Again, there are those who suggest it's going to be a tough race, a close race, the Gordon Joiners and others who are out there. What's going to make the difference, and how do you divide up what may well be a low turnout? What are you going for here?
Well, what we're looking for is experience. District 6 is looking for leadership, hard work, and a little bit of
But
common
what
sense.
percentage of the vote do you think can win this or get you into a runoff? What is your political factoring here?
Well, for one, I'm factoring in 100% voter participation, and I'm looking for every vote, and we're looking under every rock. And we're hoping that everyone out there underneath the sound of our voice will come out and participate. September 17th, it's a special election.
Yeah.
But what people need to understand, this is a 27-year generational change. And this election is very important with the virgin territory that District 6 is. We want to make sure we come in, and that someone comes into that seat as a gatekeeper to make sure we build a wall of protection around that area, that nothing can penetrate us that would harm this area.
Virgin territory, explain that, please.
Well, I go back to the 60,000 developable acres in South Fulton County. Nowhere else in Fulton County is that much land developable. The land cost about half the amount that it cost in North Fulton. So this is very crucial. You want a steady hand at the wheel with this, and experience matters. The other candidates, it's good to learn new things, but this isn't the place for learning. If we were going under the knife for surgery, you wouldn't want to wake up and that doctor said, well, things didn't quite go well, but I sure did learn a lot. Now, I wouldn't want that guy operating on me. So some things aren't for learning on the job. Some things you want someone that knows what they're doing and has the experience to handle the business, and I believe I'm that person.
Well, Chairman Rob Pitts leads the Fulton County Commission. Marvin Arrington III is there as well. But there's some who suggest, some who believe, Fulton County Commission is now really dominated by the north side of town.
Well, and I've heard that rumor before. One thing, there is a rumor going around that the next person they want on the commission, they want someone that leans towards the central and north preferences. We don't have a representative for South Fulton in the literal sense. Commissioner Arrington definitely serves us well, and he's a great partner and friend of mine. However, we want someone in South Fulton, from South Fulton. I grew up in East Point and moved on over to College Park. I'm also very well connected with Atlanta. I went to Mays High School with myself, Kawanza Hall, Caesar Mitchell. We all came out of school together.
You guys are quite a political class. Huh?
Well, we represent that next generation, I think, and but we didn't do it on our own. I grew up in the 70s Atlanta, in Maynard Jackson's Atlanta, in Reverend Gerald Durley's Atlanta. And the reason why we were able to do the things we were able to do is because these people fought for us to make sure we could go further We never had to worry about police brutality. We never had to worry about unsafe neighborhoods or any of that growing up. So we grew up with an understanding that, you know, we were covered. And it's my job to give back. And for District 6, I offer experience, my affection for the community, and my protection for this community.
Finally, is that passion, that political purpose, that political will, that political dynamicism amongst your crew of folks that came out of there? I mean, that's a special number of folks, young leaders you mentioned.
Absolutely.
Do you still have the will that Reverend Durley and his folks did?
Well, I'm still following the leadership. I'll tell you right now, I take my marching orders just about every week at Concerned Black Clergy.
You're there often, aren't you?
I am one of the youngest board members and one of the only non-clergy board members. They took me in and they pointed me in the right direction. And, you know, if you're able to follow orders, it's easier for you to be able to give orders.
Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Karn, candidate for District 6, Fulton County Commission. Thank you for being here.
All right.
Good luck.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you very much.